Hey all, Steve from GuitarNiche here. So we're back at our G Series Takamine that needs some, well, basically a partial refret. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first order of business is I'm going to pull this 4th fret, which is not replaced as compared to the first 3. And my preferred technique is to score along the sides of the neck, or sorry, not the neck, the fret, I should say. And look at the junk that comes out of there. It's crazy. Anyway, well, we'll get in there. We'll get it out. And I use my handy dandy end nippers. No soldering iron, no heat, no moisture. This is pretty straightforward. And it'll work. It'll work just dandy. Might be a little bit of chipping. Nope, it's actually pretty clean. Okay, so what do we have here? We're going to take our caliper here, zero that out for inches, and we have, let's say, 96 wide for the head, width of the fret itself. I'm not going to measure the height because it's so worn, it's useless. What I'm more interested in is the bead or the tang width. So by way of explanation, I took some measurements of the 19th fret, and which is, you know, that far up the neck. The frets are basically pristine. They really are. So 96, 97, within a thou or so. And the height was roughly 0.038 inches. What I'm interested in here is this, the tang width. And there's a couple ways I can go about measuring that, because the idea is I want to replace the fret wire with something as close as possible. And I have the luxury of having, you know, lots of little bits and pieces of fret wire and a stock of assorted sizes and stuff like that. And, you know, if you're doing this yourself, you go through the same process. Pull something, measure it, order in what you need, and then do the job properly. Okay? Anyway, so what is our tang width? This can be a little tricky. I'm doing this, it'll be upside down for you, but that is looking like, let's see if I can get something on that. Probably, okay, by way of explanation, there's 3 typical widths: 20.020, 20 thou, 22 thou, and 24 thou. That's, you know, a general kind of, you know, typical thing for fret wire. And what I'm trying to do here, if you can see this, and it can be difficult getting around the beads, but I'm going to suspect that this is probably a 24. So the measurement I saw there was close to 25. 25 and change, actually. I'm not going to rely on that because with the beads there, it's difficult to get a really truly accurate read on the wire. So the way around that is to measure the slot width. Between the slot width and the bead, or the tang of the fret, we can make a very well-educated decision as to what is the preferred tang width again, okay? So this is 24 thou on my feeler gauge, okay? And does that fit in there? Oh, geez, that's perfect. That is perfect, absolutely. So, right off the bat, we know it's 24 thou tang width, okay? No need to measure any further than that. So I need some fret wire that's going to match that, and not very much, it's because it's only going to be 4 pieces. And an easy way to do this is to take, we can do this just by eye, you know, and see if we have something. I know you're maybe not seeing this as well as I am from my angle, of course, but see if this matches up That's a bit too narrow. Okay. So again, by way of explanation, I did select some pieces beforehand. And these are typically from All Parts. All Parts is a great resource for very specific. They carry. I'll give them an endorsement. All Parts has a wonderful resource for the dimensions of the fret wire. All the dimensions you need. Very, very specific. Very, very cool. Is this going to do it? Now, the first course is eyeball. Oh, that looks pretty good as far as width goes. I'm going to use the C caliper here and see if it's close. And that says about 94, which is, you know, within a couple thou. That's acceptable. Yeah, it's about 90, 94, 95. What is our fret height? 49. That's going to be a little bit high. So we can work with that, but we'll have to spend some time knocking that down a little bit. Let's see if I got enough here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, more than enough. Great. That's just a little cut off from a previous job. But this should do just nicely. Yeah, I'll have to knock down the top a little bit. But being at the end of the fretboard, it'll be, oopsie, it'll be a non-issue. I'll make sure that it goes in fine. Yeah, that'll do just fine. The next part of this job is pulling the remaining frets. I'm going to wind up cleaning up the end of this fretboard. It's got chew marks all over it. Whoever put the frets in they did some damage. Anyway, I don't think the owner's too worried about the looks so much as functionality, which works to my advantage. I'm going to just do one here. By scoring the edge of the fret like that is the fretboard, this is a totally dull box cutter. One of my favorite tools. It's stupid simple. It just feels right for me. I've been using it for years. This is probably glued in. I'm going to bet you dollars to donuts that that's glued in, but I don't care because I'm going to pull it anyway, and it's going to get ugly. Oh, I can hear the glue, and I don't care. I don't care. Look at that. Yeah, I'll get in there with a tool and clean it up. But that was just a shit show. It wasn't really, you know, put in there properly. Who knows what that is? Some generic, probably Dunlop fret wire, because people refer to fret wire these days as jazz car, as stainless steel. I'm sorry, I'm hacking on things. But, you know, trends are trends, you know. Back in the 80s, it was brass. 10, 20 years ago, it's graphite. Now it's stainless steel frets. Whatever. Things will carry on, you know. At the end of the day, let's just get the job done. Make the customer happy. Make the guitar happy. Playable. Good job. Make it work. Make it right. Okay, so we cut that one. And by scoring the edges of the fret, all I did is just break the surface tension. Jesus, look at that. Break the surface tension of the material. That's a wreck. Anyway, we'll probably wind up gluing it in anyway. And it just stops, or it doesn't stop, it just reduces chipping. You're going to get chipping when you pull frets regardless. So I'll make a point of this. When you're refretting, you're taking frets out of what was virgin wood, and the little beads on the side of the fret, here's an example, those are going to tear up regardless of what method you use. Those are going to tear up that wood. Going in, dandy. Coming out, not so dandy. It's renovations. You know what happens with renovations. If you own a house and you've had to do any work on a house, that's gets a little older. You got to fix stuff. We got to fix this. Oh, by the way, you got to fix that. By the way, you got to fix that. It's problematic. Simple as that. When these frets come out, those beads are going to rip at the virgin wood that was there. So there's a number of different ways of doing that. My preferred method is to do it. It's like quickly and efficiently. That's all I can say. Okay. Because there are ways of making things work with less work. Anyway, we're on to the last fret. And out that comes. Beautiful. Okay. I'm doing the first 4 frets to feather in the new work. So I have my replacement frets cut to length and size, all that good stuff. I will set these aside in order because our next job is going to be cleaning up some of this garbage. So it's going to be an interesting job because of the camera angle and stuff like that. I'm gonna do this a little bit odd fashion, but it'll work just the same. So what I have is just a simple sanding block with 80 grit and sandpaper on it, and I'm just gonna have that in the fretboard a little bit. Not trying to take off material. Oh, by the way, I should mention that I did use my straight edge here to make sure that the fretboard was perfectly flat. So I'm working with a correctly, measured surface here. I would never get it. That's actually, I was going to say, the tape is going to interfere. And FYI, fun fact, this tape is 1/4 thou thick. Okay, so you know. Anyway, fun things that we know as, guitar techs. Now you can see, well, there's a little bit of chipping there. But not bad. Not bad at all. That's totally easily, it'll be actually invisible by the time it's all done. And all I'm doing is just cleaning up the end of the fretboard. I'm not trying to contour it. I'm not trying to do anything other than just get rid of any surface junk. You see how this is rolling up like that? Okay, whatever. There's something on there which is oily and causing the sawdust, whatever you want to call it, the wood fiber, like the leftovers to glue together. So, having said that, is it going to really bother me? No. I'm gonna go about it. Okay. I'm not going to try to extract any contaminants from the fretboard on this thing. So anyway, next job is I'll take my vacuum and clean up some of this junk. By the way, using a filter queen here. Horsehair. My God. Why don't we use horsehair more than anyway, horsehair is awesome. Just one of those stupid little things. Anyway, it does a brilliant job. Natural products, any day. So I haven't really taken out any of the nastiness yet because I'm making an assessment here. How far, how low do I want to go? Well, I have to, I'll phrase it like this, or I'll put it in this context. This instrument will never be pristine. It's a player. If I erase all the evidence of the previous scars and stuff like that, I'm erasing its history. And my primary consideration here is functionality. Obviously, cosmetics have some bearing on the thing, but my primary consideration again is functionality. So, having said that, all I did was take off just a little bit of the surface junk and looking at what's going on here. Can I work with this? Absolutely. This is going to work out just fine. What I'm concerned about is the frets going in and having a reasonably solid bed to sit in. You know, will they have something to grip? Is it compromised? Is it going to be a real problem? No, it's not going to be a huge problem. Even if it is a little problem, I can still deal with it. Not a big deal. You just got to have the right techniques and the right processes. Having said that, I'm going to give this another shot with the 80 grit. Following the radius of the neck. Very, very simple. Again, trying not to tear out the pages of the diary. From 80, I'm going to go to 220. That's fairly clean, okay? And once again, just going over the surface evenly. Not trying to level or anything like that, just trying to take, the level stuff out. Now you can see we got some junk going on there. I'll deal with that in a second. Take out my handy dandy supply of K Razy glue. And I'm just going to stabilize these voids. Boy, oh boy, there's something on there. Yeah, whatever. There is some product on there which is oil-based, which is going to make our final result a little interesting, let's say. So, what I'm going to do is help it along. Mix it in. There's always a way. Problem solved. Make it happen. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to try to denature whatever's going on here to begin with, but I do want to make sure that whatever's going on there is not going to affect the end result. Okay, good. We'll let that dry for a second. Okay. So I think enough time has passed. I'm going to ask the owner here if he's been using any product on this, like Pledge or something not designed for an open pore fretboard, because this is disturbing. But we have ways. That's back to my 80 grit. Let's get rid of some of that. Surface junk. Okay, we go to plan B. There was always a plan B. Plan B is just get creative. I have a bunch of furniture markers here. And I'm going to see if I can find something that's going to blend that in a little. Oh, look at that. That's a wonderful thing right there. This will all hide once I sand it back a little bit. It says burnt sienna, but on an educated guess, I'm going, this is a pretty good match for whatever's there. Yeah, that works. That works. Just furniture touch-up markers. Easy peasy. And that'll blend in. What? They disappeared. Oh my God. Yeah, that's how it goes. Anyway, back to, darn it, back to my 220. And that's still there a little bit, but we will deal with that again. It'll all work out in the end, trust me. Okay. Good to go. Okay. Good. Now finally, we're going to wind up with 600. I'm not going to bother taking out the fret junk just yet. The slot, the leftovers in the slot just yet. Okay. You can see that the fret slots are actually, they look like they're fairly clean at the moment, but we still have to make sure that they are clean. So I'm just going to take an X-Acto knife here without the junk on the end. I actually have another specialized tool for this, but this will do just dandy. What I'm concerned about is any foreign matter that's in there tearing up. See, oh, look at that. Tearing up our nicely leveled surface. Oh, there's a perfect example right there. This wood has been compromised. I will tell you this right now. This wood has been compromised by using the wrong kind of product to condition the fretboard. Whatever it is, it ain't right, and it's been used improperly because the wood should not be this mushy. It's mushy. This is supposed to be rosewood of some kind, and it's mushy. It should never be mushy. It's way too oily. Anyway, we'll call this a learning experience. Oh boy, it's having a hard time just sticking. Oh, we'll hit that again. Well, this is the stuff we learn about as we go. Yeah, so that'll take just a second to set. And then I'll just feather it in. Okay, we can leave that alone for a moment. All right, and on to the next fret. Now that we know that there is a liability, see that? That should not be happening. This is all clunky. It's all like clumpy. That should be just dust. Dust in the wind. Hey, there's an idea for a song. Oh my gosh. That one wasn't too bad. But the reason we do this is so that we know that when we lay the fret in, carefully now, when we lay the fret in, we do not have the tang bottoming out and reaching a limit where it just won't seat. Simple as that. So there are reasons why we do things the way we do. And finally, this last one should be pretty straightforward. There we go. Yeah. I think that because this one was fine. But these three here, whatever product was used to fix the damage here, like the refret, partial refret, was totally inappropriate. And it contaminated the wood. And now we have a situation where we have to work with what we have. Simple as that. Okay, anyway, quick shot of 80, quick shot of 220. Luckily the tuners aren't in the way and all that headstock stuff. And a quick shot of 600. Just for leveling. Just for leveling. Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll work out just dandy. Our next step is hammer time. Why do I say hammer time? Because I hammer frets in. I also press frets in. It depends on the job. When we have a partial refret like this, the most logical and convenient method of getting the frets back in is hammer. And at one point, I used to use a bag of kitty litter underneath the neck to absorb the shocks and stuff like that. But I found that, yeah, it was fine, it worked, but there was really no difference between doing that and just having a good support mechanism for the guitar itself, the neck itself, let's say. Okay, so these have all been, like the replacement frets have all been trimmed. That is the fret ends and stuff like that. Okay, and I will center them. They're fairly tight to the edge. Not so much that it's going to pop the binding off. Oopsie. That was a bad start. Let's see if we can get that a little bit more accurate. There we go. All right, one of my favorite jobs. By the way, before I continue, you see how that fret kind of rolled over as I was trying to lay it in? Imagine that happening with a fret press. You're going to have all kinds of bad. Anyway, so I'll just chase that. And give it an eyeball. Good. Is it perfect? I don't know. We'll figure it out. My straight edges will tell me. That's a beautiful thing. Whoopsie. On to, sorry, we're moving around a little bit here, but we'll get it done. Okay. And number 2. Who is number 1? If you know what that means, you're definitely a boomer. I'm not a number. I'm a human being. Beautiful thing. Oh my God, tuners are just destroyed. Well, we'll get back to that in a moment. Anyway, so to carry on the commentary, this is my least favorite fret when doing refrets. Why? Because it's got the least amount of surface area. Like if you take compared to the end of the neck, closer to the saddle, you you're just missing so much surface area. They tend to grab, plus, you know, this is a highly played area, etc. Anyway, a few reasons. That's a beautiful thing. Okay. Hammer Slammer Bammer says it's all good to go. And that's that. Now, before I continue, I'll show you what I was concerned about. If we look at the, let's get some stuff out of the way here. If we look at the tuners, sorry, while I move this around, as I was hammering that, I'll use the plastic end here, but I noticed, you see the tuners? The tuner buttons are having a, woo! Shocking, absolutely shocking. Why? Because they're not tight, simple as that. You got tuning issues, it's one of those things you got to take care of. Anyway, at this point, it's a matter of cleanup. We'll take off the ends here. We'll chamfer the frets to match what's existing, and get the level down to where it makes sense. Quick check for solidarity. This one's not sitting pretty. Help it along a little bit. Nope. Okay, fine. We'll deal with that later. Okay, next step. We are going to take off the nibs here using my modified side cutters. Let's see if we can see that. Yeah, you can see that. Okay. I keep these pretty sharp, by the way. Not as sharp as me, but you could say I'm about as sharp as a marble. Anyway. And I'm working around the camera, which is always fun. Whoop, gotta be careful here because we can nip the binding, which is a no-no. And let's see if we can get that in shot. Okay. The other thing is, I left the old strings on because they're going to be a wonderful gauge for later on, so that I can at least get the everything in the ballpark. Great. That'll slice bologna any day. So we will take off our... Look at this. Wow. This is crazy. So I just took off the tape. And this is evidence of either not being cleaned or using the wrong kind of conditioner or something. This is painter's tape. This is really low tack tape. And I can't remember the last time I saw something like this on an open pore fretboard. This is pretty interesting. What this tells me is that this fretboard is in kind of a compromised state. Being that it's open pored, it will come back, not a problem. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind up hitting this with naphtha along the entire length, okay, which will take out any surface contaminants and kind of even out the amount of oils on the surface and stuff like that, and then I'll treat it properly after that. Anyway, so the next step is to chamfer these fret edges, fret ends, if you would. I just put that down just to control contamination. I have a tool. I have the a block that has a 30-35 degree radius or angle on it to do this, but I prefer to do this by hand. So I'm using the edge of my thumb here as a brace as I ride along the top of the fretboard. It gives me control over the angle of the file and all sorts of wonderful things. I'm going to have to switch to a coarser file because this is not going as fast as I would like. Yeah, see how these ends here, you see how they're chamfered way in there, way in there. That's well past 35 degrees. So I'm going to have to get aggressive, which is using a more aggressive file, okay? And I'm letting the fret ends dictate how far to go. Get rid of some of that junk. Get rid of some of that junk. Right away, I can see that that is lining up much better with the original fretboard. The hard part here is really working at odd angles, so it's a simple matter of feel, really. Either you're hitting the fret or you're not. And if you're not hitting the fret, you're hitting the binding, which is a no-no. Because as soon as you hit the binding, you got to hit all the binding. And we're in the ballpark. So from this point, these fret ends are almost in line with the original frets. But what I'm more concerned about is, can I get these frets to marry up, feather in, that is, with the original frets and look as original or as unbastardized as possible. So this will require a little bit of measuring. I'll break out my trusty calipers here. So we'll use the 5th fret here as our ideal. Okay, so we have our caliper set to 0. And I'll just use a arbitrary flat surface here. So we're looking for 34, 35, okay? 0.034035. And what do we have? We have, well, let's go for the 2nd fret. Set correctly. We got to take off 13th thou. So that's the end of it, okay? Which is what the thickness of a 2nd string on an electric or the 1st string on an acoustic medium gauge. So not too much, but it's still significant, okay? Anyway, so we'll take it from there. I'll turn this off for a moment. The fun thing is I'm going to avoid this fret as much as possible as I try to level out. Oh, before I continue, sorry, should make a point of something. I will doubly make sure that the fretboard itself is straight, which it is. It's great. It hasn't moved. One thing I noticed about this when I was setting it up or making an assessment early on is like, oh my gosh, the fretboard, the neck is really stable. There's a good rod in this thing. And it's not, the neck is not distorted. It's stable, it's not distorted. I mean, all the best qualities. So I have a lot of confidence in being able to do this. Otherwise, I'd have to work around other issues, right? So anyway. Okay, so I missed one step, which I will get to in a moment. Okay, I just heard it. Maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't, okay? What I forgot to do was seal down these fret ends. That is, tack them in and make sure that they are not going to move. It's not so much the middle of the fret, it's the fret ends which become a problem. Get rid of that. Just hold it down. No, I'm not gluing my finger to the fret. It just doesn't happen. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all you need. Okay. I'm using the forward edge of the forward side of the fret. It's arbitrary. Doesn't really matter. As long as there's something in there to stick it. Mind you, we'll see what we see because, if you remember, the actual wood itself is not in the best condition. So I might go and hit the other side. See, my finger didn't stick. It's really that simple. No, I'm going to hit the other side. For whatever reason, the wood is aged. There's some contaminants of some kind, so I'm going to just put some insurance on here. And I can clean up any residue with the razor blade as we go along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bob's your uncle. When I don't see the glue running into the rest of the fret, that's awesome. That means it's a good seal. That's really cool. That's great. It means they're actually seated quite well. For what it is, it's all good. All right, so how did that turn out? Solid. Solid as a rock. Oh boy, you don't want to hear me sing. Anyway, next step. I'll do this now rather than later. Is I'll scrape out that excess. I could do it later, but you know what? I'll do it now because it'll blend in a little better as we get into the final stages of finishing. Polishing the frets, all that wonderful stuff. By the way, I never use razor blades to clean a fretboard. Not a fan. Removes too much material. There's other ways. That's a beautiful thing. Okay, just getting that in the light so I can see what I've created. Oh, that's mushy. And we got some nice little divots there, which again are pages in a diary. We never want to remove those unless we're told to. Even then, it's a questionable endeavor. Okay, back to our job. I know I haven't taken off nearly enough material, so I'm going to keep at it for just a second. See, how can I say this? Well, I'm going to get rid of that. At this point, it's a moot point. I'll express what's on my mind. At this point, I am concerned about blending the fret height into the existing fret height, the new fret height into the existing fret height, and avoiding a distortion in the end of the fretboard with the new frets. I want to make sure that this fretboard is as level as I can make it without resorting to a full leveling beam and stuff like that. Not that I have a problem with those things, it's just that dressing in, feathering in a minor refret or a partial refret like this doesn't have to be really, really complicated. It doesn't have to be, I mean, the other way I would say it is like this. If I use a leveling beam, I gotta deal with all the frets. The person that owns this is price sensitive, so I have to concentrate my efforts in such a way that I'm using the most effective and efficient methods possible to keep the price down and the time involved under control. Simple as that. And still produce, you know, acceptable results. It really is that simple. Anyway, yeah, a little bit of knocking going on there. Of course, these are going to be good. Okay, so carry on. This is a really aggressive file, but I've used it for many, many, many years, so I know what it's capable of and what kind of damage it can do. I don't think I've even hit that 5th fret yet, but we're close. And in the meantime, I'm watching what's going on with the tops of the frets. And I'm going to use a little trick to guarantee that the wear is consistent. That is, the new work is consistent, which is my concave file here. And I got to move the light around a little bit. I'm going to prematurely crown these frets with a really aggressive crowning file, which does a fantastic job. You notice I haven't used any marker or anything like that? Why? Because I can see the light. I see what I need to see through the light. I can see all the work being done on the top of the fret by my 2 plus 100-watt incandescent bulbs. And I keep cleaning the file. This is very, very important. I want you to, if anything, get something out of that in terms of maintaining tools and stuff like that. People give concave files a bad rap. I've been using these things for years. Yeah, they're quick and they're efficient. But when you keep them clean, they will last forever and they will do a great job. They really will. You just got to know how to, you know, use the tool to produce the results that you want. None of these diamond files, I don't use them. Not that I don't believe in them, but I know what I like. You notice I'm using forward cuts, never on the backstroke. Okay, so when the file loads up, clean it out. Okay. If I'm in a hurry, I might go back and forth, etc., but try not to. Okay. So where are we at now? Yeah, we still got a ways to go, but at least we know that we're getting down to where we need to be. Okay, so we're simulating years, a few short years of wear. This is my technique, but the file is telling me everything. When it skates, I know it's level. It's a funny thing. It's hard to describe, but it is what it is. At this point, what I need to do is make sure that we're not getting too far out of spec. Very close. Okay, so that we got a hump here. The transition from the new fret to the next original fret is key. The neck is it's good, but I'm gonna correct it just a hair. It might be heating up under the lights. No, that's all right. No, that's good. That's where we want to be. That's a totally good thing. I'm going to keep milling these frets. Well, I should take a measurement, I suppose. Okay, back to our 5th fret. And where are we? Let's say the 3rd fret. Where are we? 0.8 or 0.008. So we're getting there. As you can, after all that work, there's still a fair bit of meat to take off. So we'll have at it and keep going until we get it down to a reasonable level. Instead of wasting a lot of time, just repetitive work here, what I'm going to do is keep at this until I have it down to level here with the original frets. And then we'll look at the process of marrying and feathering in the same geometries of the original frets and making it look nice. So by way of explanation, you may have noticed I'm just using regular old flat files, some more aggressive than others. Bastard versus fine, I'm not sure what the difference is. I only know what the outcome is. This is a double cut, as you can see. I'm pretty sure it's a bastard as opposed to a bitch. Anyway, this is a single cut long blade, or longer file I should say. But the interesting thing about this is it being a finer file, it also has a kick on the end. That is, it does a little bit of a kick on this end, but it kicks up, which I use to my advantage, because when I'm doing fretwork with the nut in place, this really comes in handy. Anyway, I've made other comments in the past regarding fret or files with distortions in them. They're not your enemy, they're your friend. You just have to know how to rationalize them in terms of usage. Anyway, so we are, as I said, we are at that point where I've got the frets down to within a couple thou or so. We're in the the final stages here, and just got a slight little tip there. That's going to be about 3 thou. That's going to be about 1.5 thou. And I'm just going to feather this in. I've just started to kiss the 5th fret. There's some minor fret wear there, but it always, here's the thing. You got to consider this. Fret wear always looks way worse than what it really is. Got to stress that. I'm not worried about those divots at all. What I'm worried about is consistency through the neck and making it playable, user-friendly, consistent, as close to original as possible on a budget. Okay, so using this file, by the way, no block on top for, handy dandy or anything. I just have a feel for just how I use all my files. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to feather in the new frets to the old frets up to about the 12th fret area or so. And I can feel it knocking here and there, but I'm not too concerned about that because I'm going to be able to work that in. There's, oh, just the slightest little tip there. What the heck is that? Okay, so the caveat here is I have to be conscious of whatever work was done beforehand. And I'm going to take a moment just to double check. I did this previously, but I want to make sure that no distortions have popped up in the meantime. That's good. Okay, anyway, carry on. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting, but this is the process. The feedback I get through this file is everything. Either it skates and it slides, or it's biting. Those are two very different feels. And this is, I'm sorry, I can't say it in any other explicit way other than when you use tools long enough for certain jobs, the feedback you get is specific to the user and the tool. And what I can say about this particular file is it tells me when the fretboard is true and straight and within literally a thou or so or not. Simple as that. Okay, here's another tip. This is a beautiful thing. Hopefully it makes it into the video. By scraping the frets, they have heated up. If I let them cool for a second and I run my hand across it a couple times, the oil from my hands, my fingers, and the cooling effect will change what's going on the neck and will give me a truer representation of what's going on in terms of the final result. That's good. That's good. That's good. It's flush. It's level. Does my tool agree? We'll see. If it's right, it will glide without friction, without interference. A little knocking. That's because I'm doing it one-handed. But I'll tell you right now, that's a done deal. The file was gliding across the surface like it was slick. What that tells me is that there's no hump or bump that is providing friction in one spot, a hot spot or anything like that. So from this point, the job is really finessing the frets with my remaining file. So this is my coarse concave file. I use this for quick removals. This is my, oh boy, this has got to be 30, 40 years old easily. It's got wear on it, but it still does a fabulous job, and it burnishes at the same time. It cuts, but it doesn't grind too much, which is, again, it's a matter of knowing your tools. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do is get the fret down to the right crown. I started with a forward-back motion just to get a little idea of what it feels like. Not that I want to continue that. I can feel it cutting. I tip it a little bit either way as I go, and I leave the finest line through the middle as I possibly can, and I rotate the file periodically. And that is that. Clean it out with my flat brush. Get rid of the junk. That'll be just fine. So I'm going to carry on and do the rest of the frets in the same fashion. And when I'm done that, I'm going to take out a score line in this. This is why you clean your tools. Your base of tools have to be cleaned regularly. I just saw a score line on the back edge of that fret and I took it out. Okay, anyway, so I will carry on, do the rest of these frets. Be right back. We have our 4 replacement frets laid in. That's our partial refret. They are blended in to match the angle of the, how they come across the binding, which is pretty acute in terms of marrying the new frets to the existing frets. You just sight down the end of the neck this way and trim the angle of the new frets to match what's already there. It's pretty self-evident when you look at it. But the key was making sure that the level was good to begin with. So how I got there was a matter of just dressing down the frets, crowning, dressing down, crowning, dressing down, simulating natural wear and tear. The reason I did that is because the frets I had to work with were a little bit oversized in terms of fret height, and I wanted to make sure that they blended in well with the existing frets, which are really quite low in terms of modern standards. Once I got the overall fret height leveled in, which is seamless in terms of how it blends into the rest of the neck, which is the idea, of course. So let me back up a second. As I was dressing out these replacement frets, I just started to kiss the original frets, and at that point I knew I was really, really, really close. And if you refer to the last section, you'll see that the frets or the files I was using, et cetera, et cetera. It's a process. It's a feel thing. The only way you can develop this is by doing it. Lots of modern tools, et cetera, et cetera. But the processes and feel, no substitute for feel. How it should look, how it should feel. Okay. Anyway, and then when I had the last 4 frets here married in and blended in and all that good stuff, I'm looking at them and I'm going, they don't look right. So I knew exactly what the problem was. I had to give each fret a little bit more tinkering on the outer edges, so that they were a little bit more rounded. And I have a medium concave fret file that I used to do that with to marry them in with the look of the original frets. So at this point, considering the wear marks and the tooling and everything I've done to this point, the transition from the refret to the original frets is almost imperceptible. That's the idea. We want to create a situation where was this actually, was it refretted, or was it a partial I don't know. You want to make it invisible. That is the point. Do the good work. Okay, anyway, I digress. From this point, it's a matter of, well, how do we make this look really, really nice? Okay, first step is burnish the fretboard. Give this a quick rundown. This is just a fine brass bristle brush that I use for this kind of work. And considering the condition of the fretboard, I mean, that goes a long way, just as is, you know. And then next step will be, I'm going to take a piece of 1500 micro mesh. Notice that I'm not masking anything. There's a lot of gunk on the top of this. Masking is just going to be a waste of time. That's my gut feeling. All I'm doing is just blending in the existing fret wire to the new fret wire, vice versa, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and I'll go along the fret edges to make them nicey nice. Sugar and spice. Very, very nice. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Once again, this is 1500. So I'm skipping the 220. I'm skipping the 600. All those in between values, because I want to get a sense of what a polish is going to look like on this fretboard. How much of this do I want to keep? A little bit of junk there I want to get rid of. Okay, a little bit of junk there I want to get rid of. Tooling marks, glue, all sorts of wonderful things. Okay. And as for that, I would say we are just about, well, let's get right in there. Good to go. Goodly. Okay, good. Now, I'll go back to, where is it? There. My 600. You see, the process there was I was using 1500 to put a semi-polish on it to see where the gremlins. Where's the garbage? What do I have to take care of? Okay, now at this point, I'm going to use 600. It's worn. It's got a little bit of, tear out of it. But it's going to burnish these frets just fine. Using a diagonal process, cross-cutting, not too aggressive. Blending, okay, and then with the frets themselves. Stop it. Okay. So far, so good. Very good. Okay. Now, let's hit that with a cleaner to raise the junk. How long is that going to stay there? Oh, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds. And it's gone. All it does is raise the junk. Okay, that was pretty quick. Now you'll see that I just hit that with a household window cleaner, and the fretboard dried up pretty quickly. I mean, within seconds. Now I'm going to burnish this again real quickly. And we are getting there, definitely. Definitely. Okay, we're into the final phases. Now keep in mind, I do not want this to look like shite and briny, brand spanking new. That's not our purpose. Keep that in mind. Not absolutely brand spanking new. We're going to make it look nice and original, like it was never tampered with exception of the odd little divot here and there. Okay? A little light resanding with 1500. Again, no masking necessary. If this were a different kind of fretboard, I would consider it for sure. And then on to, let's say 3200. And we'll start with the edges. That is the fret edges. Dig into the edges here. By the way, I married or chamfered the edges, the ends of the frets, to look more like the original frets, because the refret, partial refret frets were too square on the end, so I just knocked the ends off, just the corners off, just a hair, to make them look to make them look a little bit more original, to use a term. Being that I spent so many years with my belly against a 5-horse buffing motor and lacquering, yeah, that's a lot of chemicals. You get a sense of what works on buffing metals and stuff like that. I mentioned previously that I might hit this with naphtha, but at this point I'm using my normal processes and I don't see any reason to do that. If you believe it or not, if you can get your hands on good old-fashioned newspaper, newspaper makes a wonderful polishing compound, or medium I should say. Here I am using just good old-fashioned paper towels, dirty as hell, from this job anyway, and they do a wonderful job. The last thing is I gotta hit it with something that puts a surface on it. This is my preferred product, Wyman lemon oil. It's not a lemon oil, it's a mineral oil, as you should know. There are, many other products, and they all have various benefits, detriments, and all that kind of stuff. There's guitar-specific, like F1 oils and stuff like that. They're all wonderful. They're great. They're wonderful. But it's how you use them, and it's how you apply them, and all sorts of wonderful things. This stuff, the reason I use this is because it's really thin. I know that when I put it on, rub it in, take it off, it's brilliant. It doesn't harm the wood. It doesn't dry the wood. It just gives the wood a little bit of kiss of the oils that it needs to carry on. Simple as that. And it's just going to be just literally just a couple dribbles, just like that. I'll rub that in real quick. And you'll see the wood darkens up. It loves it. It wants the minerals and the oils that the product has. And look at that. I will finish up with a clean towel. And there you have it, sports fans. So what we wound up doing was we did a partial refret, first 4 frets, into a, would it be vintage? Would this actually be vintage Takamine G Series? I don't know. But anyway, let's have a look. So we have replaced a few frets and cleaned up the fretboard. I would say it turned out pretty okay. All right. All problems that we came across, there's a little bit of a blemish right there, which I'm not sure of, but anyway, it's a beauty mark, whatever it is. But overall, things turned out just dandy. Okay, anyway, that is a partial refret on a Takamine G Series. Next up is the nut.